You're not lazy. You're not flaky. You're not incapable of commitment. You may just be someone whose mind was never built for the kind of life you were told to want. And if you've spent years feeling strangely guilty because you can work hard, think deeply, learn fast, and still feel trapped by traditional career advice, this may explain more than you expect. If this kind of psychology-based content helps you understand yourself better, subscribe, because this channel is for people who've always felt difficult to explain, even to themselves. Maybe you've tried to follow the script. Pick one path, stay focused, specialize early, climb steadily, don't change your mind, don't get distracted, don't overthink it, just commit. And yet, every time you tried to force yourself into that structure, something in you started going numb. At first, it looked like procrastination, then inconsistency, then self-doubt, then that quiet shame of watching other people seem so certain while you kept feeling pulled in 10 directions at once. You may have become the person who starts strong, loses energy, questions everything, reinvents constantly, and secretly wonders whether your curiosity is just a more intellectual form of self-sabotage. Because that's the part no one talks about. Curious people often look impressive from the outside and confused on the inside. You can see possibilities others miss. You make strange connections quickly. You get obsessed, then detach. You can feel intensely alive when something is new, meaningful, layered, or psychologically rich. But the moment something becomes too narrow, too repetitive, too dead inside, your energy drops in a way that feels almost impossible to explain to people who think discipline should feel the same no matter the task. So you begin to mistrust yourself. You stop seeing curiosity as intelligence and start seeing it as a liability. You stop seeing complexity as depth and start seeing it as dysfunction. And eventually, even your own mind starts to feel like a room full of unfinished doors. But what if the problem is not that you cannot succeed? What if the problem is that most career advice was designed for people whose motivation systems are different from yours? Traditional career advice usually assumes that clarity comes first. Pick a lane, define the goal, build a plan. Repeat the process long enough and success will come. For some people, that works beautifully. But for deeply curious people, clarity often does not come first. Contact comes first. Interest comes first. Emotional resonance comes first. A sense of inner aliveness comes first. Then clarity emerges afterward. That difference matters more than most people realize, because if you keep forcing yourself to act like someone who becomes motivated by stable goals, external milestones, and long-term linear progress, you may keep misreading your own psychology. You may call yourself lazy when the real issue is misalignment. You may call yourself undisciplined when the real issue is dead attention. You may call yourself behind when the real issue is that you were trying to grow in soil that keeps rejecting your roots. One way to understand this is to think of motivation less like a machine and more like an ignition system. Some people are built like diesel engines. They warm slowly, stay steady, and can run long distances on consistent structure. Curious people are often different. They may run more like spark engines. They ignite through fascination, challenge, novelty, tension, meaning, pattern recognition. When those things are present, they can work with almost scary intensity. When those things disappear, they don't just lose focus, they lose combustion. And because the world praises consistency more than internal truth, you may have spent years trying to shame yourself into becoming the wrong kind of engine. Psychology suggests that attention is not only about discipline, it is also about salience. Your brain is constantly scanning for what feels important, alive, emotionally meaningful, mentally stimulating, or relevant to identity. Curious people often have a wider attentional radar. They notice more. They feel more cognitive pull from new ideas, unanswered questions, conceptual tension, and unexplored territory. That sounds like a gift, and it is. But unmanaged, it can also feel like chaos. Because your mind may treat possibility as emotionally significant, not just interesting, significant. That means every new path can feel charged. Every abandoned interest can feel like a lost life. Every act of choosing one direction may create the strange grief of killing 5 others. So when someone gives you career advice that sounds simple on paper, your nervous system may experience it very differently. Just pick one thing may not feel calming. It may feel suffocating. Stick with it no matter what may not feel mature. It may feel like psychological self-betrayal. Be realistic may not feel grounding. It may feel like amputating the very part of you that generates insight in the first place. Research points to the idea that people are more engaged when autonomy, meaning, and competence are present together. Curious people often need a stronger dose of all three. They don't just want progress, they need psychological contact with what they are doing. They need to feel that the work is teaching them something, revealing something, stretching something real. Without that, the task may still be productive on paper, but internally, it starts to feel like emotional static. And this is where so many curious people get trapped in a painful loop. They start something new because it feels alive. They go deep fast because their pattern recognition system lights up. Then the novelty fades, the structure hardens, the role narrows, and their energy starts to collapse. Now shame enters the room. They think, here I go again. So they force themselves harder. But forced effort without inner contact often creates a strange kind of cognitive friction. The more you push, the more your mind resists. The more you resist, the more ashamed you feel. The more ashamed you feel, the more the future starts to look like a prison made of your own inconsistency. So the real pain is not just career confusion, it is identity confusion. You start asking questions that cut much deeper than work. Why can I be brilliant in one moment and avoidant in the next? Why do I crave mastery and freedom at the same time? Why do I want stability, then panic when I get too much of it? Why do I keep needing reinvention? At some point, you may have decided the answer is that something is wrong with you, but there may be a more intelligent way to see it. Maybe you are not broken. Maybe you are exploratory by design. Maybe your system is not built for blind repetition, but for adaptive meaning. Maybe your gift is not fitting neatly into a predefined ladder, but building insight across domains, spotting invisible patterns, translating complexity and turning curiosity into leverage. That does not mean every impulse should be trusted. It does not mean endless drifting is wisdom. It does not mean avoiding commitment is a personality type. But it does mean you may need a different model of success, because the old model assumes your identity should be built like a hallway, one direction, one sequence, one destination. For many curious people, an identity is built more like architecture, multiple rooms, hidden connections, load-bearing structures that only make sense when you step back far enough to see the whole design. When you are inside it, it can feel messy. When you understand it, it becomes coherent. This is the shift. You are not someone who has failed to become linear. You may be someone whose strength is integrative depth. You are not behind because your path looks unusual. You may simply be building a career around a different organizing principle, not narrowness, not status signaling, not obedience to a script, but sustained curiosity directed with intention. That is the crucial part. Directed, because curiosity without structure becomes scattering, but structure without curiosity becomes psychological death. Your real task may not be to kill one side for the other. It may be to build a life where they finally work together. So what does that actually look like? It starts with a question most people never ask. What conditions make my mind come alive repeatedly, not just temporarily? Not what sounds impressive, not what other people respect, not what feels safe for your image. What actually creates sustained mental electricity? Look at your life closely, not just your jobs, but your obsessions, your late-night research spirals, the conversations that energize you, the problems you return to without being forced, the patterns that keep haunting you. Curious people often think their interests are random because they appear in different forms, but underneath them, there is often a recurring thread. Maybe it is understanding people. Maybe it is solving hidden systems. Maybe it is building clearer language around complex ideas. Maybe it is transformation, behavior, design, strategy, truth, aesthetics, meaning. The surface may change. The deeper pattern often does not. Your job is to find the pattern beneath the variety. That becomes your compass. Then you need a second shift. Stop choosing careers only by title. Start choosing by cognitive environment. Ask yourself, what kind of environment strengthens me and what kind slowly drains me? Do I need autonomy over how I work? Do I need novelty inside a stable mission? Do I need room to think deeply, not just execute quickly? Do I need interdisciplinary work instead of highly repetitive specialization? Do I need problem solving more than maintenance? Traditional advice often tells people to choose the latter. Curious people often need to choose the ecosystem, because the wrong ecosystem can make a capable person look dysfunctional. The third shift is learning the difference between discomfort and deadness. This matters a lot. Not everything difficult is misaligned. Some things feel hard because they are growing you. Some things feel hard because they are emptying you. Those are not the same. Growth usually contains fear, friction, uncertainty, and temporary self-doubt, but there is still a pulse underneath it. Something in you remains engaged. Deadness feels different. It flattens your attention. It drains your language. It makes time feel heavy. You are not just challenged, you are slowly disappearing. Curious people need to get very honest about that distinction, because otherwise they either quit too fast or stay too long. The fourth shift is to build a curiosity container. This is where many people fail. They either give curiosity full control and become scattered, or they suppress it and become resentful. A better approach is to give curiosity structure, create a main path and side channels, one central direction that earns trust, builds skill, and compounds over time. Then a small protected space for exploration, experimentation, and intellectual play. This matters because your mind needs room to breathe. If all exploration is forbidden, it will rebel. If all exploration is allowed, it will fragment. But when exploration has a container, it becomes fuel instead of sabotage. The fifth shift is emotional, not strategic. You need to stop using shame as a career coach. Shame is loud, but it is not wise. It can force performance in the short term, but over time, it makes your inner world hostile. And a hostile inner world is a terrible place from which to build a meaningful life. Try replacing the question, why can't I just be normal, with what kind of structure lets my mind do its best work? Replace, why am I like this? With, what is this pattern trying to show me? Replace, why can't I commit? With, what kind of commitment would feel alive enough to sustain? These are not softer questions. They are sharper ones. They move you from self-attack to self-study. And self-study is where change becomes intelligent. Because once you understand your own motivational architecture, your decisions stop feeling random. You become less impressed by socially approved paths that secretly damage you. You become less seduced by novelty for its own sake. You stop trying to become someone else's definition of disciplined and start building your own. That is when things begin to stabilize, not because you suddenly become simple, but because you finally become legible to yourself. And that may be the real turning point for curious people, not finding the perfect career, finding the right relationship with their own mind, because the truth is your curiosity was probably never the enemy. Your curiosity may be the most honest signal you have. It shows you where energy lives. It shows you where attention deepens naturally. It shows you where your mind stops merely performing and starts participating. That does not mean every interest must become a job, but it does mean your curiosity contains data, and ignoring that data often comes at a psychological cost. So if traditional career advice has failed you, that does not automatically mean you failed life. It may mean you inherited a map drawn for a different nervous system, and now your real work is to draw one that fits. A map with depth, not just direction. A map with room for complexity. A map that respects both discipline and aliveness. A map that lets you build something real, without abandoning the part of you that notices more, wants more, and was never meant to live on autopilot. You do not need to have the whole path figured out today. You just need to stop interpreting your design as a defect. Start noticing what energizes you. Start identifying the deeper thread beneath your scattered interests. Start building around environments that make your mind stronger, not smaller. And start trusting that a path can be unconventional and still be deeply intelligent. Because sometimes the most dangerous advice is not the advice that sounds harsh. It is the advice that sounds normal, even when it slowly disconnects you from yourself. You're allowed to build differently. You're allowed to need meaning, variety, challenge, and depth. You're allowed to be someone whose career makes more sense in chapters than in a straight line. And if something in you felt relieved hearing that, hold on to it. That relief is not weakness. It may be recognition. And recognition is often the beginning of a much better life. So take a breath. You do not need to force your mind into a shape that keeps breaking it. You need a better framework, a more honest one, a more human one. And once you begin building from there, curiosity stops feeling like the reason your life is unstable. It starts becoming the reason your life becomes original. If this connected with something you've struggled to explain for years, there's probably another layer underneath it. And that's exactly what we explore here. Keep going with the next video because understanding your mind changes the way you build your future.